Welcome to a new webinar on our travel series here at the UX team from Nearsoft. We're very excited to collaborate with Booking.com. Our webinar today is called Grow Your Bookings by Increasing Your Loyalty. Let me first present myself. My name is Jorge Simon. I'll be filling in for Kim today as a host. And we're very excited to have two experts on board. First off is Diana Arballo, our own from Nearsoft. Hello, Diana.
Hi, Jorge. Hi, Maria. And hi, all the people in the audience. Welcome.
And also from Booking.com is Maria Ligia. Maria, hello.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here.
And as I just mentioned, this is a collaboration between our two companies, which you'll see there's big teams behind us. It's just not us. In the next slides, you can see Jorge and Diana, which would be me and one of our experts. We're part of a bigger team with designers, researchers, business developers, content creators, and UI designers. So every bit of the magic you see right now is supported by a big team, but not only from Nearsoft, also from Booking. Maria, can you tell us a bit about your team?
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty big team, but for Booking, we usually have 5 to 10 people, and that's a huge team right there. At Booking, we work in multidisciplinary teams. Usually how it works, we are like a small startup. So based on the team's vision and objectives, we have every role necessary to get there. So in my team, we have one UX, which is me. We have a client-side dev, 3 backend devs, and 2 POs, and 2 data scientists. Because we do a lot of personalization. We have also a team lead among us there. And something really cool about my team is that we have 7 different nationalities and 4 different alphabets. So that's definitely one of my favorite things about working at Booking.com, because we have over 80 nationalities in the company. So it's really cool to have different cultures and work with different cultures.
It must be a very diverse experience. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. You learn a lot.
Okay, just a reminder for our audience, if you want to make questions, if you have any questions, you can use the hashtag NearsofUX webinar on Twitter or Facebook to ask them, and we have a small time after the webinar to answer them. So let's go over the agenda right now of what we're going to be doing today. The first topic is loyalty in the travel industry. We're going to be discussing a bit about how to create engagement and loyalty with users. Next up is how to increase that customer loyalty. Then a couple of case studies so you can actually apply what you learn here in your software product or company. And after that, our world famous takeaways, which is 3 or 4 phrases that will sum up the experience for today. And after that, as I just mentioned, the Q&A. So please stay tuned and be preparing those questions. So anyway, jumping on board, you can see here a very weird picture of ketchups. And one of them is smiling. This might be your product alongside your competition. And this might be a weird kind of way to start a webinar, but just bear with me for a second. Imagine your product is competing with others, and you probably think that your product is actually looking, and the product here is a bit worried because it looks the same from the other ones. And that is not crafting a very different experience for your users or your customers. And you're thinking, but my company is different. Why isn't my product different, right? And then you say, okay, let's try something different. And then the ketchup is all excited. And now you have a backward bottle and you're serving a different experience. But what happens after a while? They catch up. They catch up and they start doing the same thing. And then you're not the only one with innovation. You're not the only one with a new experience for your users. And this happens in every walk of life, in every industry. We wanted to illustrate in a very simple exercise such as this, but Diana can tell us a bit more of what happens when you kind of take this metaphor into the travel industry.
Yeah, thank you, Jorge, for this funny and cute example. But yeah, we know that this is happening in any kind of industry, and travel is not the exception. And just to give you an idea, my team and I did a deep analysis at the end of the 2016 just to understand how the travel industry is behaving for this year. And as you can see, we took different screenshots from different booking sites just to have an idea of how these sites looks like. And these websites are very similar. They have similar layout, color palette, even the language. And something that make us and my team think is what makes this product special, what makes these services unique. And if for something that is doing this analysis of the industry is difficult to identify and understand, imagine your customers, imagine the people that is trying to use your product. So if to see the difference, like the ketchup example, like Jorge explained, will decide to leave you and say bye. Bye and look for another website, another place where they could find what they are looking for. So how to build loyal customers if you can engage them at the beginning? How these users will recognize you as unique if you look like the other ones?
So part
So
of crafting engagement or loyalty is differentiation between brands or sites or products. And what you're saying is your users will actually leave you. They won't feel compelled to come again or buy your product again.
yeah, and this is all the start. And the most common thing that these companies try to do in order to build this loyalty that they really, really want to achieve is have this great idea about, you know what, I'm going to implement a reward program because this program works. And yes, it works, but in a different level. Loyalty is not always equal as reward programs. Loyalty is something that has more background and things that we really need to talk about today.
Yeah, at Booking we do have some reward programs, and that they work really fine. So we have one that's called the Genius program, and that gives you some perks like late checkout or a free drink when you arrive in the hotel. Also some discounts for some properties. But as Diana said, it's not really the most important thing. So loyalty is about making sure that your users actually come back after the first time, that you give them a good experience the first time so that they come back for the other four to become a Genius user. So
Yeah, totally. And something that I would like to share with the audience today is something that happens in the first time that when I went to Disneyland. I went to Disneyland as an adult, and I was doing line, and I saw this girl with this big tattoo in her arm, and I was surprised, and I couldn't resist to come close to her and ask permission to take this photograph because I was really surprised. And she accessed immediately, and then I couldn't resist to ask a second question because in the reality I was little curious about the how and why she has this big tattoo. So I asked her, sorry if I am so intrusive, but I would like to know how many times a year do you visit the park? And she smiled and answered, do you mean at month? Because at month I visit the park at least 5 times. And for me it was something like, whoa, that's the kind of customers that I would like to have in all the products that I am working on. So this is for me the concept of loyalty. People that are so happy with your service, with your product, that is is coming back and back and back. But also, this girl teach me something else, that she's so proud and in love with your product. This is something that I think all the people in the audience and all that we work creating products and services we want to reach. So when I was returning at home, I was thinking, what makes Disneyland so special? Because everybody's talking about Disneyland, Disneyland. And yeah, we know that Disneyland is in the entertainment industry, in the movies and the parks and all these kind of services. But Disneyland is also a giant in the travel and booking industry. They have a lot of resorts around the world. And I was thinking, okay, what makes Disneyland so unique and so special? And then I understand Disneyland is about service. So I read this quote and I completely understand everything. And this loyalty that we want to accomplish, it's earned with great service, and great service starts with user research. And when we say user research, people right now it's kind of afraid of this word. They think that is something that it takes a lot of time, a lot of resources. But in the reality, user research is about to understand your users, your people. So in order to earn this loyalty, you need to first understand your people and your audience, to first engage them, and then you will be able to go to the next step, that is loyalty, to build this loyalty like this girl, right?
Yeah, it's not all about differentiation, but the Ketchup Temple tells us something. You can change and you can differentiate your product only when you understand your users, and then when users are engaged, they will become loyal. And when they become loyal, you can reward them with different reward programs, such as the ones Maria mentioned from Booking. But the important thing is that that is the end of the line, not the first part of the line. So anyway, let's get right into it. We have two case studies today, one by Allset, and the second one by another giant, which is Booking.com. And let's talk first about Allset. If I remember correctly, Allset is a software company that specializes in personalized booking options. Let's say they have an algorithm that tells you from your preference where you can travel, right? And the UX team worked with them. Can you tell us a bit about how this case study went?
Yeah. Uh, also, is now part of DIM, but when they reach us to collaborate together, they had this challenge about increase the conversion rate on the Evernote integration. So when we start to collaborate with them, what we did was to, instead of redesign everything or add new features, what we did was to first understand their target audience. So we have these one-on-one sessions with their users to understand how they plan and manage their trips, and understand what kind of tools they also use. So once we finish these one-on-one sessions and we present them all set as a new product to integrate with the Evernote accounts, we make sense of all these findings using this method that is kind of popular in the user research field, that is an affinity diagram. For most of the people, is a lot of post-its, but it's a great tool to make sense of all the insights. And here we detect the user motivations, the barriers, and the emotional states that they experience when they are planning the trips. And once we finish this affinity diagram, we identify three pain points areas in the user journey, from the first moment that users read something about Allset to the end of this promise of the services, that is get hotel recommendations. The first pain point that we identify is related with the benefits. Users need to read a lot about Allset in different sources like social media, landing pages. The second pain point that we found was related with the trust. Here, in this specific part of the user journey, users feel worry about what kind of access Allset will have once they click in the call to action and make this integration. So here users decide to quit. So it was one of the more critical. And the third one was related with the effort. Once if users pass from this barrier about the trust, if they want to connect with Evernote, they need to fill a lot of different screens with information about their preference and different forms. So at the end of this whole user journey, users need to do 13 different steps to get the first hotel recommendation. That means a big effort from the user side, invested in a blinding way, because they really didn't know exactly what they are going to get at the end of this user journey.
So So like for the first recommendation, I need to do 13 things before I can see a result?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was, whoa, it was a lot of work from the user side. So that was the reason the users decide to quit. So what we did was to use this another method that is not so popular, but is also effective. That is called Scenario Swimlanes. And this is a document that summarizes all the user experience from two different point of views, from the user experience side, that means from the customer, and from the backend business. So in that way, you have the whole picture of this process. And if you want to change or move something, you can see if this impacts to the other area from the user side or from the backend. So using the scenario swimlines, we came up with three solutions for three pain point areas. From the benefits, we create this one single landing page that summarize and communicate clearly all the benefits to integrate OSET with your Evernote account. Also, we add some user validation in the section that what the people are saying and how OSET works, what users are going to get. From the trust side, we create this table that clearly said what kind of access users will have once you decide to authorize this integration. So users understand clearly what kind of things OSET will be able to do and what kind of things OSET will not be able to do. And finally, for the effort, we discovered that users need to get something at the moment when they decide to make this integration with OSET. So instead of make them pass for the whole effort side, filling a lot of different fields with information to get a more accurate hotel recommendation, what we did was to present one, maybe not the most accurate, but they have right now in charge if they want to continue filling information to get these recommendations. And at the end, we were able to clean and make easy this user journey from 13 steps to 4 and help OSET with their user engagement. So at this point, users were ready to reach their next business goals, that is, of course, work on their loyalty.
So instead of just jumping in and developing some new feature or redesigning something based on a hunch, if we keep using the ketchup example, you asked users how they wanted to hold a bottle of ketchup, what they were expecting. So you understood what story your product was telling, and then you understood how your users were walking that story with you, right? And scenario scene lanes may sound complicated, but it's really about 3 changes that transform the product from 13 steps to 4 steps. And I think that's the first great grand view we have around creating engagement, and then afterwards loyalty. But anyway, we have a second, the big case now, which is Booking.com. We're going to turn over to Maria. Maria, can you tell us a bit about what you're gonna this case study from Booking.com? Sorry, I'm.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that was super interesting, Diana. It was really interesting to see that point of view as well.
Thank you.
So at Booking, there's a photo of our headquarters here in Amsterdam. We usually get ideas from different places. So like at the start of a problem, we can come from our friends and family. So they're also our users, right? We can get ideas from them, and they're traveling and they're booking from Booking.com. This actually happens very, very often. I've had many different things that I've done in the website before that came from them. It can come from colleagues. It can come from different parts of the business, but colleagues in the team in IT, or colleagues that are from other departments. And actually, I have an example later on that it did come from a colleague. But mostly it really comes from user research. So of course, Booking.com is very known for A/B testing, but we value qualitative insights very much. So we know how important it is to talk to our users and to understand why they just, why what we design make them behave in certain ways. This is very important to understand because the user has done nothing wrong, right? Like it's our design that's making them do something wrong, and we need to fix our design. We do this testing in many ways. So we have feedback tools that daily our users leave some feedback for us. We have surveys that we put out on the website asking questions, direct questions to our users. We do ethnographic research, so we go to people's houses or their work or to the airport and follow them around. We do usability testing. We have a lab. If you can go back one slide, that photo there is a photo from our lab here in Amsterdam, our headquarters. So we have eye tracking, you have that mirror wall. So it's really cool. We can just set it up whenever we want, and the researchers will help us with that. And we also do street user testing. So super interesting because it's very low effort, but we can just go out there and ask our users what we want from the Starbucks down the building. But of course, we do a lot of A/B testing as well. So based on what you said before, Diana, I actually, like my last big project here, booking last year, I was responsible for creating personas. So I also help identifying behaviors on their experience. Also, I did some user journeys to try and understand the path that our users were taking inside booking.com. So it was really cool to get that type of qualitative insight as well into the experience. But so that's very particular about the way that we do things at booking.com is that we test absolutely everything in an A/B test. Just so we are all on the same page, what an A/B test is. So you have an idea of how you could change something that's already in your product, and you split your traffic in 50%. So 50% of your users will see what's currently in the website, and another 50% will see the change that you want to make. So you have base, which we call was the current design, and then we have a variant, that's the B over there. And then whichever one is successful, and the metrics that you choose is the one that's going to stay live. So we really do test every single idea that we have, and we get a lot of people saying how cluttered the website is and how full of information, and sometimes it's a bit chaotic. But those are all opinions, right? And the one thing I learned at booking.com is that we shouldn't really care about opinions at all. Opinions are full of biases. They're full of personal experiences and judgment. And we can go to the next slide for this. And if something is on the website today, it's at booking.com, it's important to understand that is because our customer said via A/B testing that it worked for them somehow. So I guess one of the main things that I learned here at Booking is to be humble, because many times something that we worked for really hard will not go live because it's just they told us that they didn't like it. So back to how we do A/B testing, we call our tasks experiments, because that's really what they are, right? We're experimenting with them. When you still have the problem in your hands with no solution, it's important to be sure that you're trying to solve something that's an actual user problem. So, and that by fixing that, you will be improving the user experience, and you'll also be helping the business. Of course, that's a very difficult goal to achieve. Sometimes, you really shouldn't be sacrificing either one of those, but sometimes the best experience can hurt the business. And sometimes that's okay. But the important part to understand here is that this needs to be defined from day one. You can't be doing this without the hypothesis not having that specific part into it. So your hypothesis and your metrics, they need to be directly correlated. And if they don't match your story at the end, when you look at your data, it simply means that your experiment did not do what you were planning to do. So when we make a hypothesis, it should be fairly simple if you already understand the problem that you have in your hand. So let's give it a real problem. I think you can move on to the next slide. Yeah, so we have this area in the bottom of our property page that recommends similar properties that you're looking at. That's the screenshot that you're seeing there. This is a pretty difficult area to get a win because it gets very low traffic. But I had this idea, actually I got this idea from a colleague, and this was like a year or two ago, and I was trying to change the way, he said that like this lines, I don't know if you can see it from your screen, but there are some lines between the information in each property. And he was like, oh, these lines kind of are separating the content. Maybe if we have vertical lines there, separating one property from the other, it would be interesting for legibility and so the users can actually read all the information and be more legible. So the hypothesis would look something like this. We can move on to the next slide, please. Yes, so we believe that changing the horizontal lines there, so it separates one property from the other for all users. So you can see the ones in the brackets there being what you would change for your own experiments if you want to run A/B tests yourself. So for all users, of course, in this case it's for all users, but sometimes we run some experiments for specific countries or specific markets, so you would change that. We'll make them more legible and easy to understand their purpose and hierarchy of information. And we will know this when we see an effect on the metrics that you're expecting. So it could be an increase of bookings, but it could be an increase of input on reviews if you're doing something on reviews. So it really depends on what you're changing here. And this would be good for customers, partners, and our business because it would help people make a better decision based on their needs. So this is basically what a hypothesis looks like. In my team, we have a rule. We never really start working on an experiment without a hypothesis. This is really good because it forces us to discuss the problem before. So we can identify some flaws on our problem. Maybe it's not a real problem. Maybe it's just something that we would just want to see if it's pretty. So that's not good enough. It helps us identify things that we're missing. And then also it helps us to start working with the certainty that we're going somewhere, right? We have a goal. So now you have a problem and we have a hypothesis, and that's halfway there. With that in mind, we start working on it. So we have a solution. So this is what you see here is the two screenshots. So the screenshot of base, which is the one with the horizontal lines, and the variant is the one with the vertical line. So you can see that at least the readability of it improves a lot. You can actually see what property, differentiate one property from the other. So after that, we put it to our traffic. As I said before, we split the traffic, and we have an internal tool that was built by some really smart people at Booking.com. And it gives us pretty much anything you can possibly imagine in terms of data. So we let it run for as long as it's necessary to get a statistically conclusive result. This can mean different times for different areas of the website, but we usually run them in week cycles because every weekday, and we've identified this a long time ago, every weekday has a different behavior, and that's really clear when you see the data. So we need to make sure that we're making decisions that aren't biased by those things, right? So this is not something that we want to pollute our data. So this is really cool, right? So I've never worked anywhere like this. So the power that I have as a designer there, it's pretty amazing because I get to work on things that would be decided by our users. And we learned this in a matter of weeks. So it's pretty cool. We do need a lot of business awareness to be a designer at Booking.com because you need to make sure that we at least know enough about statistics that we can interpret the data after the experiment runs. So this is, of course, the PO helps us in this, but it's definitely something that us as designers are responsible for. So we have our results, and when we get the results for the data, it should tell a story of what the user did. So it's almost like a user journey. Sometimes you can see like what they did from the beginning when they saw your change until when they booked, and that's pretty cool. So some questions that we have to ask ourselves is like, does this change that you make actually works the way that you intended, right? So sometimes you get a win that was not specifically wasn't directly related to our hypothesis. And we don't really make decisions like that. We make decisions based on our hypothesis. So did it actually make the experience better, or did it make it worse? Did people book more or book less? Did they cancel more, cancel less? So those things are really important for us. And the worst of them all is when the change that you did didn't make enough of it wasn't enough of a change to be conclusive. And that's definitely the one that we fear the most. So in the case of my example there, it was a successful experiment. So people were booking more because of that change. And it looks like a small change, but it's a big win. So yeah, so that's really cool. We're not always that lucky. Actually, it's much more common to have either negative or inconclusive results. But if I had to choose, I would definitely prefer, of course, the positive, but the negative over the inconclusive, because if it's negative, at least you know that people hated it, right? And you know that that's something, it's a signal. it's something that you can work with. So what's even more important is what you do next. Making a change, whether it's positive or not, should bring many learnings that you can apply to the experience and make it even better. So we have hundreds of experiments happening on each page of our site, and we will have 100 more every day. So it's a never-ending learning process, right? So and it's pretty amazing to have that type of learning. This is what makes Booking.com so strong and a leader in the travel industry, because we're learning every day, and we from this we make other better experiments. That's also why our customers come back. So that's also why we have the loyalty here. So what we were talking before, rewards program are really cool, but if we're not providing them with the best experience, we are not really getting there, right? So, and the cool thing about it is that the experience that they're having was improved based on what they told us before. So if they come back a month from now, their experience is going to be something better than they had a month ago. We also have a pretty cool customer service that gives our customer support 24 hours, 7 days a week. And this was also an A/B test, actually. So back in the day, a few years ago, we had this hypothesis that if we had in-house customer service agents, we would be getting more engagement and loyalty from our users, because the agents, they would be trained and they would carry the Booking.com values. So they would strive to give our users the best help they could get, instead of a third-party company that doesn't really care that much about our users. And this was a very successful experiment, so much that today, over half of our employees are customer service agents. And I think it's one of the things that I hear the most about the booking experience. Everyone that has to talk to them, they also always have a really good experience. And that also helps building loyalty. So the learnings, the follow-ups, and the constant iteration that comes from A/B testing, plus our amazing customer service, it builds the loyalty that we were talking about. And I think that's a pretty good overview of the Booking.com formula and the way that we work.
This reminds me a bit about what Diana was saying about understanding users. A/B testing might seem a bit rough, but if applied correctly, it's wonderful what you have done. Like you can actually almost scientifically prove different hypotheses in this experiment.
Yeah. That's the whole idea behind the A/B testing. So that's like we're so known today for A/B testing that people don't know how much of a qualitative testing we do, because the thing about is exactly what you said. It's scientific. It's a science, right? So sometimes we get a lot of answers, but they're usually a yes or no. So like, did this work or did this not work? And it's good to have this balance, because with the qualitative, we can actually ask our users, or we can just observe from their behavior that why that's happening. So those two together is a very powerful tool to understand the user journey. So it's not necessarily a user journey drawn like we do with UX processes, but it can get us pretty close to that, and with a huge amount of data. So that's really cool.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
so
No, I just want to say that I love the way that how booking works, and I love this philosophy that you shared with us about that if the results are negative, at least you have something to work on it. So that's the idea of implement user research and understand your people, that if something is wrong or not positive as you are expecting, at least you know that something is it needs to be improved, and you have a starting point instead of continue guessing. So I love that so much.
and that's actually part of science too. Sometimes it's so valid to know what you don't know, and that'll the interesting part. One of the interesting parts of what Maria said is the constant iteration. If you're constantly doing that, then I feel like your knowledge base keeps growing and growing, and then you become a giant in the travel industry, like booking, I guess.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, like, we know that we are very far ahead in terms of testing, and we've learned so much with everything, but we know that we're not perfect, and we know that there's a lot more to learn. And also the market keeps changing, right? So Booking is 21 years old this year. And from then to now, look how much the internet changed and how much the travel industry changed, and we'll keep changing, and it's changing much faster now, I think. So we know that there's a lot more to learn, and that's why we keep doing it. That's why we know that we have to keep iterating. We have to keep learning from the mistakes and the wins that we get.
Okay, so before we go, let's sum it up in 4 really simple lines here with our takeaways. Next slide, please. Oh, there you go. First of all, let's understand your users first, and remember they are unique, just like your company. So before you spend money on branching out or creating a new feature, talk to your customers, use scenario swim lanes, use A/B testing, whatever suits your current pursuits. After that, remember that loyalty is about engagement.
We lost you. Oh, there you go.
I'm sorry. I was saying that that engagement is a very important word for loyalty, because it creates a bridge between you and your customers. And after that, remember what Diana said with her experience in Disneyland: loyalty equals great service. And yeah, when I first saw that example, then I was really blown away, because, as you said, Disney is also a big travel industry competitor. They have resorts all over the world. And finally, this is something very hard to do. Number 4 is stop making opinion-driven decisions. Be a scientist. Be like Maria. You need to start asking those questions and really, really commit to finding a yes or no answer, and keep doing it until you can satisfy and understand your users. So anyway, back to the ketchup example. Be different, but don't forget to iterate constantly, or they'll catch up. That's a very lame joke. Catch up. Okay.
Catch up the customers. Yeah, right. And even a giant like Booking is aware of that, and they continue iterating and doing new experiments. And also we do it here with the products that we are working on. And so remember that the catch up. How is the joke?
No, it's like if you don't iterate constantly or keep working on it, they're gonna catch up. Catch up. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. Anyway, we want to thank Maria for taking the time for being here today. And if you want to know more, you can contact her at maria.kluckner@booking.com. There's your slide share. Is there something you want to leave us with, Maria?
Yeah, so I have a talk about that too, which is in that slide share over there. There's a channel on YouTube from Booking.com that has a talk that I gave, that it's basically what I said today, but in a 1-hour talk. And we always have openings there. So if you want to work with us or want to know more about the way that we work, I am always available to talk about it. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you want to work more, if you want to know more about Nearsoft, you can visit ux.nearsoft.com, or send us a line at ux/team@nearsoft.com. Or if you like it the old-fashioned way, you can call Sandra at the number appearing on your screen. And I think that's all for today. We're going to be answering the questions through email. But thank you a lot for your time, and we'll see you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.